Hello and welcome to the first video in the series of how to fly a helicopter in Arma 3 for PwC. For this series we will be chiefly focusing on the RHS Blackhawk, since it's arguably the most aggravating helicopter to fly. Or at least it was. This video will focus on Arma 3 editor and how to start placing helis down for yourself. We won't cover the editor in depth since that is out of the scope of this series. If you're already comfortable and familiar with the editor, you may skip this step. We also won't be covering things like zoos or MCC and yada 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 because those are already being covered in some other tutorials that Rectorol created, and you can look at those for reference. For this tutorial, we will be going over how to place down single units, how to place down a helicopter with the pilot already loaded in, how to place it down while it's already flying, how to place it at a certain altitude, how to damage a helicopter using the INIT light function, and of course saving and loading the map. So first, we load into the game and we click on the icon that says editor. This will bring up a list of maps that you can use. Now keep in mind that this map will vary greatly depending on which map mods you have and which ones you're using, and yours may look very different from mine. The vanilla I think has only 2 or 3 maps, but for now let's choose Island Panthera for the starters, since it contains some challenging terrain. Now the first thing you'll see is the Arma map. We can move around this map like you normally would in game. The main thing we'll be focusing on will be placement of single helicopter units on the map. First, let's make sure that the single unit placement is selected from the top left corner. It looks like a single standing man. To place a unit, simply double click wherever you'd like to place it on the map and you'll see the slightly confusing menu come up. For us to place any empty helis down, we first need to spawn a player. The player is the editor who will spawn in locally to test the map out. This person is basically you. Without the player, the editor will not be able to load in your simulation, nor will it give you the option to spawn empty units. So let's just put a NATO infantryman by selecting NATO from the faction list and rifleman from the unit list. As you can see, we now have a rifleman placed on the map, and we can drag him around by holding down the left mouse button while on top of it and dragging it around. We can also rotate the unit by holding down shift and left mouse button and dragging that around. Now that we have a player spawned in, you'll see that we have the option to start placing empty units. This means that any vehicles that we place down will not be crewed by a faction and won't simply take off without you getting to pilot it. The RHS Blackhawk is placed under the Helicopters tab in the class menu, and it's called the UH-60M. Once we place it, we see a yellow marker on the map confirming that we have placed an empty unit. As before, we can easily move around this unit and rotate it as well as to position it wherever we want. Now sometimes you don't want to start testing everything out and simply want to get straight to flying. For that, we can simply spawn the heli with the player as the pilot already in it. Instead of putting the player down as a rifleman, we can simply load him and the pilot inside the Blackhawk. This time, since we're not using an empty unit, we'll need to select a faction for the crew. The Blackhawk is located under Blue 4, USA Army Woodland, or Desert. Either would work, with the only difference being the color of the helicopter. Since we're on Panthera, let's go with Woodland. Now when we go under the Helicopter tab, we can see the Blackhawk listed. Simply spawn it when you load in and you'll see that you're ready to go already loaded into the heli. Let's spawn the MEV or the Medevac version just for fun. Okay, let's say you're really impatient and don't want to wait around to start the engines up and you want to go straight to flying. To do that, we simply change the special tab from None to Flying, and your heli will spawn flying 50 meters above the terrain that you placed it near. So if you place it on top of a river, it will be 50 meters above the river. If you place it on a hill, it will be 50 meters above that hill. That brings us to the next option, altitude. Pretty self-explanatory. The altitude tab lets you choose the altitude of your heli. Just make sure that flying is selected under special, or your heli may simply crash into the ground. Finally, let's go over the INIT line function. The easiest way to simulate damage on your heli is to use the initialization line to damage specific areas of your helicopter. To do this, we first name our helicopter something simple, like H1. Now that we have a reference or a name to call it, once you're in the simulation, press escape and you'll see the init line area on the right side. Yours will probably look empty, but mine's set to some values that I was using earlier for testing. Pardon the background noise, that's just my roommates being silly and playing loud music. So, as I was saying, yours will probably look empty, mine's set to some values that I was using earlier for testing. And I'll put a link to a document in the description so you can copy paste this and edit it to whatever you like. We start with the name of our heli. In this case, it's H1. Then we type in the set hit point damage, which rates how damaged a certain part of your chopper is, with 0 being fully repaired and 1 being completely broken. The labels are pretty self-explanatory. The stabilizers are used to prevent your heli from shaking and vibrating in flight. Once you're satisfied, simply hit local execute and run the simulation. To save your map, simply click the Save button on the top left. Make sure that the Save As is set to User Mission. Type in a name and you're good to go. To load the map, simply open up the map that you saved your file on and hit Load. I already have a couple of items saved, mostly for flight practice and such. Thank you for watching this video and I hope you enjoyed it.